welcome to Yellowdig Spring 2020 Kickoff. We are here today to sort of help you, remind you about some of the important stuff going on in Yellowdig and how to use it, and share some new stuff as well. And this is our agenda for today. We will introduce ourselves, that's exciting, and share resources that you can use. Then we will talk a little bit about Yellowdig's design and pedagogy principles, and then we'll get into the platform. And in that part of the day, we will talk about some of the things that you may already know, but that are going to make a good refresher, as well as some of the recent updates and some of the forthcoming things to look forward to as improvements in the platform. One thing that's really important, I think, is we will be talking about setting expectations with students, letting them understand why you're having that Yellowdig community and what to expect once they're in there. And then also talk about your workflow as instructors and having that instructor presence. We'll also talk about some of the data that you can get out of Yellowdig to inform your teaching. And then we'll also take questions. So let's start with introductions. I'm babbling away, so I'm just going to go right ahead. I'm Bob Erdischek. I'm Yellowdig's Senior Community Success Consultant, and I've been working at Yellowdig for 22 months, I think. And yeah, well, after you hit 2 years, I guess you start counting in years. It's like babies, you count them in months until they hit 24 months. So I'm 22 months in and loving every minute of it. And I work with our clients to help them with the to get the most out of our pedagogy and best practices, and trying to make you successful. And who are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm Brian Vernine. I'm Yellowdig's VP of Academic Product Engagement. What that means in practice is that I do a lot of the supporting of the product, both with students and instructors that are using it. My background is all in psychology and education, so I really started at Yellowdig 3 years and 3 months ago. Just looked it up the other day. 3 years and 3 months ago, really to do research on the platform, understand what makes Yellowdig work, and under what situations it works best. So always happy to talk to your instructors and help them get the most out of the product.
All right, so especially if you have to jump off early or something like that, if you need any more information, or if you just want to discuss your course with me, feel free to give me a shout, bob@yellowdig.com. And if you haven't already, we would strongly encourage you to take our 1-hour self-guided Yellowdig instructor certification course. You can use that QR code to get you there. It's also, you can check out all of our courses at learn.yellowdig.co. And of note is the new Facilitator certification course, which is a little bit shorter and a little bit more focused on the actual acts. Somebody who didn't design the course, but is running the course, what they would do in Yellowdig. So perhaps for TAs or for people whose instructional designer may have set up the course, and then you're just asked to teach in it, that would get up and going. All right, I'm trying to click the button to go to the next screen.
And the certification course is only an hour. I can't recommend it enough in terms of really understanding some of the things that Yellowdig can really help you achieve and get your students excited about.
And yeah, so please take it. It's good. Additional resources, things you need to know for you and your students. If you have technical issues, or if your students have technical issues, you don't need to try to conquer them yourselves. Give us a shout, support@yellowdig.com, and our team will have eyes on it and resolve your issue as soon as they possibly can. What's the next one, Brian?
We also find that a lot of people are able to answer questions really quickly by just exploring our knowledge base, and you can access that at help.yellowdig.co. It's also available inside the platform with the help button, and we'll show you that later.
Yeah. And we've been doing monthly office hours for most of 2021, and we're going to continue that into 2022. They haven't been scheduled yet, but they will be by the end of the year. And you'll be able to go to this website, whatyellowdig.co/office hours, to sign up for those. And in those sessions, they are what they say, that basically you could just ask us any questions you want, and we will help you out with them. Those are also a great place to go to hear about upcoming newer improvements to the platform, because we usually surface those as well. And finally, Brian?
Yeah, the last really good place we have is the Yellowdig instructor support community. So this is just a Yellowdig community where you can interact with other people that are using Yellowdig, interact with some members of our team, get answers to your questions there as well.
All right. So what's this about?
Yeah, so when Yellowdig started, we really wanted to transform classrooms into more active social, experiential learning communities, where students could really help each other learn, and where instructors are part of those communities, also helping students learn. And part of the reason that we're interested in that is because formal learning situations really only encompass about 10% of students' overall learning, and they're learning a lot of the rest of the things they need to know through social experiences and through real world experiences, or connections to the real world that can be made in their classrooms. So that's what Yellowdig is trying to add to courses.
All right. And just going a little bit further into what we do at Yellowdig and what we're trying to do, one of the things we're trying to do is create a new paradigm where we're building a real learning community for students to engage. And part of what we like to share is why we're doing that and how we're doing it. So Brian, do you want to address this one?
Yeah, so the typical social assignment in a course usually looked like this sort of diagram here, where an instructor might have one topic they want students to talk about, or respond to, or whatever, and they start the week off that way. And you might have those go-getter students that come in early, try to complete the assignment, really try to start conversations with other people, interact with them in meaningful ways, but they find that the only option is to kind of respond to what the instructor told them to do, and there's nobody else to interact with. So they just kind of actually learn to procrastinate themselves throughout the course. The other thing we see is that students will tend to procrastinate right up until the deadline that you've given them before the next assignment would start, and so you get this giant kind of crush of behavior, of participation right before the deadline, and students don't really have time to have meaningful back and forth conversations. If you think about that last little guy there, uh, uh, they actually are responding to other people, but nobody's ever responding to them. So really, they're not having a social experience at all. And we see that the prompting kind of structure and that kind of structured situation creates some some problems that just can't be avoided within that framework.
And students view this as an assignment with a due date, and they behave accordingly. They wait until it's due to do the assignment. So this is Yellowdig. This is Yellowdig, and you'll notice a few things that are a little bit different than what you saw in that previous slide. First of all, that instructor icon is not necessarily at the start of every one of those conversations. Students have agency to bring in what they think is important, what's relevant to them, their life experiences related to the course content, to ask and answer each other's questions in Yellowdig, and they're incented to do so through the point system. The instructor still has a role. We view these communities as being instructor modeled more so than instructor led, and the instructor is another citizen of the community. The other thing about Yellowdig that's great are these little dashes here. That means that that conversations can sort of reemerge when they become important again. They can ebb and flow based on what's happening in students' lives or in the world related to those course concepts. And also just a note, there can be more than one conversation going on at a time. There can be more than one conversation going on at a time.
That really gets students interested and engaged in what's going on. And in order to decide what they want to talk about, they actually have to read more, right? So having more options and having this more natural kind of ebb and flow really helps keep students more engaged in those conversations.
All right, so we wanted to get you started for spring and remind you of a few things and help you get set up. So I'm going to just start and say Yellowdig is a single semester long assignment. It is one grade in your grade book if you decide to use that passback. and the student's grade in it isn't final until the end of that term. So the key things that you need to know is that you make one assignment link in your learning management system, and that those student grades, as they're displayed, if they're displayed in the learning management system, will fluctuate based on how many points students have earned versus how many points they could have earned at any particular time. The important thing is to keep students, have them stay on pace to achieve their goal throughout the entire term.
Yep. One other piece of advice is that most student access issues that you might run into or that they're going to run into are related to their specific tech or settings that they have on their own computer. So in most cases, it's better or faster for all of us if you just have them reach out to support if they do have any access problems with Yellowdig. We'll be able to get on the phone quickly with them, figure out the problem, and move on from there. But a lot of times it's cookie settings on their browser or something like that, and we can get that figured out quick.
Awesome. And if you're using a learning management system, Canvas, Blackboard, Sakai, Moodle, whatever, use that learning management system to populate your Yellowdig course. The LTI configuration, the Learning Tool Interoperability Standard, allows Yellowdig to transfer students into the Yellowdig community and also pass back a grade. So for that reason, setting a single assignment link is the way to populate them into the course. There are options to invite them through an email link in the platform, as well as a share link, but those are more generally used for other use cases outside of the curricular use. So we would encourage you not to use those with your students.
The
Anything
email
else?
invites are great if you want to invite in a guest speaker or an alumni into a class that you want them to participate, sort of outside of the grading system, and that's largely what those were intended for, or for other kinds of clubs and things like that, where people might need more open access to the community.
All right, we're going to get into the platform in just a second. I thought maybe we should just highlight what we're going to cover a little bit as far as some of the new things right now. Probably the one that's going to be most apparent is the new point widget. Brian, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so we wanted to make it a lot easier for students to understand, where they are and sort of what they should be doing, as they're participating. So we redesigned the point widget a little bit, and you can see the green bar there. That will adapt to show the appropriate text for students to say, whether they need to kind of speed up point earning, whether they can still earn some more points before the next rollover, things to that effect. And then we put everything under the show details button in terms of communicating everything else around the points, and we'll show that later. We also created a draft feature recently released, so some of you might already be familiar with that. We can talk about that a little bit. We would encourage you to use reminder notifications. Those were semi-recently released. A lot of people, are seeing good benefit of them, and we would encourage you to use them. Um, Bookmarks are being added very shortly, so that you'll be able to mark any individual post as an interesting post that you want to be able to revisit later.
And we're also coming very soon is topics without points. The ability to create a topic and let students engage on that topic, but without them earning Yellowdig points towards their point goal. This can be great for things like a class lounge or a coffee shop or something like that. So students can feel engaged and feel part of the community while you keep them on course relevant conversations. And we'll show these all in the platform, the ones that we can at this point. The next one is @mentions. You may already be aware that you can @mention anyone, and your students can @mention anyone, and that person will get a notification and they'll be brought to that post or comment. Coming soon are community and admins @mentions. And as far the community @mention will work for the instructors and facilitators, in other words, you, to be able to reach out to the entire class community and call their attention to a particular post or comment. And the admins, how is that one going to work, Brian?
Yeah, admins will work for anybody in the community to call any owner or facilitator's attention to a specific post. So that one will be available to students, and each of these will be able to be independently toggled off so that you can remove that functionality if you don't want students to be able to at mention the instructional team or whatever.
All right. And we're going to, like I said, jump in the platform. We just also want to mention that the LTI Standard Learning Tool interoperability standard that integrates Yellowdig with your learning management system, we are now able to update this to LTI 1.3 in Canvas at the moment. And why would we want to do that? Why would anyone want to do that?
It's better for security is one, but there are a number of upgrades that standard will allow us to do for roster management, being able to set up assignments more easily, and set up grading for students and to manage groups. So one thing that is true is that we'll have to work with admins at your university to get that installed in your learning management system. So if you're interested, definitely start a conversation with us. But that should be a really nice upgrade for everybody when we can make it.
All right. I think we'll jump into the platform. Just give me a minute to switch if you want to fill for a minute, Brian. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. That would be great.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going into the platform to demo it here. So if you do have any questions or specific things you want to see, we'll try to make sure we hit on those. Feel free to add them in the chat or in the Q&A. And yeah.
All right, Brian. Let's see, which community ought we to go to? I can go to one that has some of those new features. Should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I can.
I got it. I just needed to. I need to share my screen again. All right. So as you can see, I hope, are we looking at something that looks like Yellowdig? Okay. Here is where that new point modal will be. Another great feature about this for you and your students is going to be the show details area, which is, I think, much better, much more usable now, more organized, and really should resolve any questions students have about the points they're earning. As you can see, when they click on this, they will see their grade, and there's a tool tip where they can have that explained to them. I really am pleased that the points log is now located at the top of this widget, of this modal, I guess you would call it. And in there, you'll be able to see, and students will be able to see exactly how they earn points, what they earn points for, when the various earning periods end or start, and what their grade is at that particular time. And now, one of the great things is it goes in reverse chronological order. Previously, if you were in week 7, you would have to start looking at week 1 and scroll all the way down. Now it's going to show your most recent week first. The point rules are always going to be right here as well. And also students will have a view, and you'll have this in the points report, a view of their individual progress and pace towards their goals. So they should always know whether they're on track to receive their full Yellowdig points. And then finally in here are all the earning periods, and it's surfaced in a way that they weren't before, where students will be able to see exactly when earning periods start and end. Brian, what shall we talk about now?
I was looking at a couple of the questions that came in. So Christy asked, in the past, I've worked with universities who used Yellowdig. Have we worked with any K through 12 schools, and have we integrated with Schoology? The answer is we have worked with some high schools and middle schools at this point. I don't know specifically that we've integrated with Schoology, but I did quickly look up. They do have an LTI integration capability. So we follow the standard pretty closely. So we've been able to integrate with any other learning management system that has it. I imagine that we can. Um, the other question that came in was around sort of points not transferring into Canvas. Um, and Maria, I think, yeah, Maria, if you're still having any problems with that, please reach out to support. We can get that taken care of quickly. I imagine it may have something to do with which link students followed in, or something like that. Typically, typically the GradeSync page that you have will show a status for them, and we can pretty quickly figure out what's going on, if there is a problem.
And just to, I'm going to just go one step further. If you're on LTI 1.1, students need to click not the Yellowdig Engage on the sidebar, but rather the single assignment link that you've created in the assignment area of Canvas to get them into the community and also enable that grade passback.
Yeah, so if you do have in Canvas is a quirk of Canvas, but if you have a Yellowdig link in the sidebar navigation and students only ever access from that, they will not get their grade passback set up. LTI 1.3 is going to fix that problem. So one of the reasons that we definitely would love to get as many people over to that quickly is because it enables some functionality that is just currently not possible.
All right. So couple of the other things that you can see here that are new, you may or may not have noticed this in your own Yellowdig community, are drafts. Drafts allow posts to be begun, and then you can save them until you're ready to share them. So if I started to type some stuff and I got distracted, I could click the little X here and it would go into my drafts folder, and I can keep, oops, well, I'm in a weird community here, so that's not that unexpected. But basically, that draft is going to be there, and then I can go and get it back. I'm going to go to a different community now and show. Well, yeah, I'll show it in a different community. It's coming. It's coming. Okay, there we go. Oh, drafts. There we go. So drafts, if you had saved some drafts, oh, well, that's interesting. Sometimes things happen. I'm going to assume that's my computer, but they will be there, and you'll be able to just click edit and post, and at any time from now until the end of your term, add those posts to your feed. Students can do the same thing. Anything else you want to mention about drafts?
They can be copied. If you own the posts, they can be copied. So, some people have wanted to create some drafts and then copy them into a new community. They will copy.
All right. Speaking of creating a new semester's course, maybe some of you have had a Yellowdig community that you were using last semester, and you'd like to have the same settings go forward into the next semester. Brian, can we help them with that?
Yeah, so if you go into the settings area, that's one place that I like to show people. In the settings area, you can find in basics a link to be able to share a template. And you can use that template, or anybody that's using Yellowdig can use that template to copy settings and content from a community of your choosing. Then when you go in to create a new community, you'll have the option of dropping that link into the community creation, and you'll be able to decide to copy the content from that. You can always copy any community you own, but that specific link there would allow you to share a template with somebody new that's starting with Yellowdig, with an instructional design team or whatever.
And there are two choices when you do that. You can, well, there's really three choices. You can copy everything, including the points, the accolades, topics, and emojis, in addition to the posts that the instructors or the community owner had made in the previous course. Or you can choose just the settings, again, the points, accolades, topics, and emojis, or just the content, the posts that that community owner had created when you're doing that. All right. So if anyone has any questions about that, let us know. I believe there are knowledge-based articles as well that can address that for people if you need to do that. But it is a good way to not start from square one if you have settings, especially around topics and accolades that you would like to use again and again. Copying those is going to be very useful to you. You know, as we're talking about starting the course, so creating the community is number one, creating that single assignment link so students can pass back their grade. Then the next thing you want to do is set up your points, your topics, and your accolades. And you'll notice that when you create a new community, you will have this little widget here that says start your new community, and it'll launch like that. And you'll be able to choose the start and end dates for your community. You'll note a couple things when you're here. The rollover date, that's when that point limiter will kick in, meaning students can't earn further points, or when the new earning period starts, excuse me. You'll also note that you can view the earning periods here. And you should do this to make sure that you have a clear understanding of when those earning periods are going to be. All the earning periods will be 1 week long, exactly, ending at 11:59:59 of the last day of that previous week. The first earning period, though, can be longer. In other words, it can be up to 1 week and 6 days long. And this can be useful for that introductory period to let students in advance and start doing introductions and earning and beginning to get adjusted to Yellowdig. But even in that first earning period, their point goals and their point buffer are going to be the same. So even if it's 1 week, 6 days long, they will still have the same point maximum that they can earn as in all the rest of the weeks. Oops. So you want to set that up. If you do that there, you're going to accept our defaults for point setup, unless again you use a template and add your own. And our default point setup looks just like this: 280 points for a post, 210 for a comment, 70 for receiving a comment, and 55 for receiving a reaction from another user. And that will be at 1,000 points per earning period. So over a 10-week course, that would be 10,000 points that students would be required to earn. As far as topics go, I don't know why that modal went away. The setup, community setup will allow you to go right here and create your topics. There are a certain number of Yellowdig default topics that we offer, but we would really, I think Brian would agree with me, strongly encourage you to create your own topics that relate to the concepts of your course, the conversations that you want students to have around your course, not creating topics that are module 1 or week 2 or chapter 3, but using the actual words that define those. And the reason for that is because these topics, as you probably already know, are filters. Makes it easier to find those conversations again, to jump back into a conversation, to make sure that you're not posting something that's redundant. And also, if several weeks have gone by since you discussed one particular topic in class, a student may not remember that it was in week 1 or 2, but they'll remember that it's related to ethics or gamification or what have you. Some things that are new in topics. Brian, you want to talk about them? And I'll just move the mouse around and stuff.
Yeah, so you can rearrange the topics to put them in order that you want them to be selected in the selector, so that when students are creating a post, the topics that appear at the top in this list will appear at the top in their selector list. That can help you highlight those, uh, topics you most want students to talk about, or maybe group topics by some meaningful way within your course. But you can move those around. Um, One of the upcoming features will be that you will be allowed to disable points for any given topic, um, in addition to enabling them overall. So when a topic is disabled, as Bob just did, you see it turns gray there. That actually removes it from the post selection area so that people will not be able to make new posts about that topic. But the conversations that have that topic attached would still show up with that topic. Um, so, coming up here soon, you'll be able to also turn off points for a topic so that students could still be able to use the topic, but they would not be able to earn points for talking about it.
So that would be useful when would you might think about using points with topics with no points?
The way that we're thinking about it, being used, and we would recommend it being used, is to have a sort of lounge topic. Some people have said, the quad, or coffee house, whatever it may be, where students, know that they're allowed to have open, off-topic conversations that don't earn points, and then when they want to earn their points towards their grade, they use the other topics, and that will allow those communities to um, gel a little bit more. Students have an opportunity to see each other as human beings, and maybe even as the instructor, you jump in and get to have some fun conversations with your students.
By the way, students will understand that they're not getting points for those topics. Those topics will look different. There'll be messaging that clearly indicates that as well. And when Brian was talking about the topic selector, I think it's worth just making sure that you know what we're talking about here. If I were to create some sort of post and click post and the topics are required, this is the topic selector. It's going to appear here and students are going to have to use it before to finish creating their post. And the thing that I think is great, like Brian was saying, is that now in those settings, you have the ability to reorder these, and you can reorder them whenever you want. So if in week 4 or something, there's a topic that you really want them to focus on, you can move that to the top and demote some of the others if that's appropriate. And I'm just going to pick one because it won't let me get out of there. See? And that's that. All right. Accolades. What are accolades?
So accolades are something that you can put on any post. Bob's pointing to them there. They look like little badges. Any post or comment, I should repeat that. We want to definitely make sure that students are getting recognized for good content they're contributing within comments. But you can put those on any post or comment and basically give them any title you want, make them worth any number of points you want, and give them a different color or icon on them. But they're for things that you would want to recognize and get other students to model their behavior after, right? So if somebody creates a comment that you think did a good job of building the community, you could have a community builder badge, accolade. Um, One of the other things that we recommend using it for is if you're allowing students to ask questions, you can create a verified response or right answer, whatever you want to call it, where you would recognize those answers to questions that other students have made with an accolade, so that students know this is the right answer, this is a good answer, and they're able to filter by those accolades by either clicking on them or using the filter in the top right, so that they would be able to find all of the verified responses, or if you had an accolade for you wanted to give anytime somebody put an interesting video on, they could find all the interesting videos. Whatever the case may be, those are fully configurable. And as Bob was about to show you when I started talking about the filters, they can be added at the bottom of any post or comment, um, using the little Manage Accolades button. And it's really easy to just drop one or a couple onto them. And as far as what we recommend using about as many accolades and giving out as many accolade points as students are being asked to earn in a week. So if you're using our default, that would be 1,000 points per week. We're finding that about giving out about 1,000 points in accolades per week is a good rule of thumb. Giving out a few more than that, not going to hurt anything. And the only thing I wouldn't recommend is don't give out an accolade on every single post. It just kind of dilutes the impact of them. You want to think about the accolades as something that you want students to model their behavior after, try to do better, try to get those accolades. And so having them, be a little bit hard to get can help also make how important the recognition is.
So those are some of the things that you need to do to get started. But the final thing that I want to talk about in getting started is really sort of setting expectations with your students. And we recommend that maybe you create a video, and I think I'll just go ahead and play this. A video that's something like this that sets down a few different things. First of all, the purpose of having the Yellowdig community. Why are we having this? Why is it important to the course? Number two, what is the instructor role going to be in? Students want to know that the instructor is present, but it's not incumbent on you to comment on every single post that is there or to regularly post. So to spell that out for students so they explicitly understand what your role in the community is going to be. And number three, what is expected of them? Earning their points, creating good conversations to get their good Yellowdig grade, and also basically fundamentally to learn together. Think I should play this, Brian?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Bernine. I'm your instructor for the Cognitive Psychology of Games and Gamification class that you're in. This is our Yellowdig community, and I want to just set a couple of expectations. Each week I want you to come in and take part in really good conversations around course topics. These can be topics that are related to the current week or other things that we'll be covering or already covered in the course. As long as it's relevant to the course, it sparks an interesting conversation with your fellow students. It's fair game. I want everybody to be respectful in this community. Make sure you're taking part in good conversations. Just to set some expectations, my role here will be to be just another member of the community. I'm going to post and comment with you. I'm going to put some accolades on your post if I think something is specifically really good. And I'll be trying to come into the community on a fairly regular basis to take part in those conversations, but I'm not probably going to read every single thing posted or comment on everybody's post, and I won't be specifically grading every post. So I want you to share really good things that are interesting for other students, and we'll have some really great conversations about this course. Really excited to get started and look forward to it.
So that was about 90 seconds long, and that's exactly how long the Yellowdig record video feature is, which is great because it keeps you concise. You also have the ability to pause while you're making those videos so that if you don't have to re-record it every time you lose your train of thought or something like that. And also when you do this, you're modeling to students maybe some ideas of what they can do in Yellowdig and how they should participate. All right. And then reminders. Brian mentioned this, I think, earlier in the course, but I just want to show you really quickly. Reminders are emails and in-platform notifications that community member students get when they have not been in the community for a particular period of time. It's not tied to points at all. You have the ability to turn them off if you want. You also have the ability to change the cadence to whatever you prefer or whatever you think is best. But when students get these reminders, they're given the carrot rather than the stick. Hey, you haven't been in the community for a little bit. Here's something good that happened there. Here's some new posts that you should check out or something like that. And they will get that and realize that they need to come back in. You want to add anything, Brian?
Just that I would definitely recommend using them. The whole idea here is that this, kind of nudges students back in so that you don't have to do as much of that and you can focus more on doing the fun stuff of teaching, like taking part in these conversations, sharing interesting things, or focusing on some other parts of your courses.
All right. Um, we have about 18 minutes left. And again, we're open to your questions. Until we get them, though, I just want to share a few other things. One thing that I think often gets overlooked is the user profile. And you might say, well, that's not all that important. But the profile, when you set it up, it defines how students see you and how they see each other, and you're modeling that behavior. And you can add a photo. When you go to this bottom left icon, this avatar, and you go to account settings, you have the ability to get rid of, or I shouldn't say get rid of, but to override the username that was established by the learning management system when you entered the course. And you can leave the username as it is, but if you put in a first name and a last name, that's what will display in your community feed, as opposed to at user 742693. And that's going to be, I mean, people like to call me user 746293, but I prefer Bob. So I've changed it to Bob here. And I encourage you to do that. Again, that will model towards your students that they should also do that as well. You can also change your notification settings there, as you may have noticed. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. But basically, you can choose, and students can choose the type and sort of whether notifications are going to come through email or whether they're coming in the platform or both, and then for what specific actions they're coming for. So if you don't want to email for every single action that happens in Yellowdig, or you can go to this My Profile and then click notification settings and change those for your individual community or for globally for any Yellowdig communities you're in. All right. What do we want to talk about, Brian? We want to talk about extending conversations and the instructor presence.
Yeah, before we move on, though, I definitely want to invite anybody to ask any questions they may have. We're happy to, jump into the platform in any particular area and answer any questions you might have had. Um, and other than that, we can keep talking for Yellowdig about Yellowdig forever.
That's
Um,
true. And we do. All right, well, while we're waiting for those questions, let's get into a little bit more about the instructor role in posting, commenting, accolades, right? For me, it's fine for instructors to ask questions in Yellowdig because you're a person, you want to know what's going on with students, feel free to ask questions. But when you do that, give optionality. Don't make everyone respond to the same question. And if you're going to do that, and even if you're not going to do it, one thing that's great for an instructor to do is just bring in something that's interesting to you related to the course, or something that shares your passion for the subject matter. I'm a big Star Trek nerd, and if there's something related to, I teach American government, if the Federation of Planets has done something in Star Trek that seems to relate to that, I'd probably bring that in and share it with my students, just to sort of make that connection in some way. As far as commenting goes, but I wouldn't do it every day, by the way, just want to be clear about that. And as far as commenting goes, you shouldn't feel the need to comment on every single student post and every single student comment, but you do have a role there. What is that role, Brian?
Yeah, when you take part in these conversations, the biggest recommendation that I would have is to make sure that you're doing the things that you would want students to do, which is not say, "Hey, good post." It would be to say, "Hey, that's interesting. Did you think about this?" And to share an article that might counter something that they said, or to share an article that kind of builds on something that they said, or to just ask a question that will help extend the conversation. Um, you know, a lot of your role here is to help students understand how to have good conversations. And one thing we definitely see is that instructors that just say good job on every post or a lot of posts really end up kind of putting the brakes on the conversation, right? If you say interesting post, students assume, okay, everything important has been said, and they kind of move along. Or maybe it's the classroom equivalent of if there's small group conversations going on And as the instructor, you kind of walk over to that conversation. Most students turn their attention to you and kind of stop talking. And that's something we don't want to do. We definitely want to help students extend those conversations.
One way I like to think about it is if a conversation between students is thriving, if there are lots of posts, lots of comments on that conversation, unless there's something terribly wrong with the student's understanding of whatever that concept is, there's little need for the instructor to add a comment to it. Certainly go ahead and throw an accolade on the best pieces of that conversation, whether it's the post or the comment. But you don't have a need to do that. On the other hand, if you see a post that hasn't gotten the traction that you think it deserves, that's your opportunity to jump in and create a comment on it, because that will move it to the top of the feed again. Everyone will see it and they'll think it's important because you jumped in on it. All right. So we talked about the instructor role, getting started and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about data a little bit.
Yeah, and as you're going to that, Bob, I think one other thing I would add, as far as community management and the way that you can make this interesting and valuable to students, is a lot of people think of, I can tell my students what they have to talk about in the discussion board or whatever, and that's one way to drive the conversation and make sure it's on topic with the class. Another way to really add value to the community and to the class is to take parts of the conversation that are really interesting, really thoughtful, really valuable, and to pull those into other aspects of your class, whether that's, talking about a specific post or comment in a live session, or maybe sharing a digest of the, 5 posts that you thought were the best. And you can do that with a permalink that you can pull from the top of any post or comment. You can link students directly to those posts. So if you share the comments and things that you think are really interesting, students will see that this is connected to the course. They'll also get a sense for what things you think are important, really good, and they'll try to get that recognition. So it really helps the overall value of the community.
Absolutely. And anyway, I was just going to share that there are ways for you to be enabled to use what's happening in Yellowdig to inform your teaching. Again, we talked about topics. I think I've been in a few meetings today, so I don't remember what I said when, but if I didn't say it here, when you create topics and they're required, you have the ability to go in and see exactly how students are spending their time on those topics on a global basis for the entire class or individually. And that can be a great early warning system if a student hasn't spent time on a particular topic that you want them to spend time on. You can also sort of identify those students who might have more experience with a particular topic that way. And again, as Brian said, that's something that you can surface in other parts of your class. Beyond that, one thing that I think is going to be extremely useful and important for most instructors is the points report. The points report is where you can go, your point of truth, to see exactly where each and every student is as far as they're earning their points. You'll also be able to, as we showed before in that point widget, you'll also be able to see how each and every particular student has earned points. This is the old point widget. You'll see the one that we mentioned before coming soon. But basically, this is where you can go if a student has some sort of question about the points that they've received, whether they received something or not. You can look here. They can look at something exactly very similar to that to see exactly that same report, and there shouldn't be any problems with that. And finally, the last thing is the network graph. If you're not familiar with that, in courses, communities, you'll have the opportunity to see exactly how students are connected and who they're connected to. If they're not connected to anybody, that's a great opportunity to reach out to them and find out what's going on in their lives. Maybe they're having some sort of problems or they feel isolated, and you can reach out to them. It's also good for identifying those connectors, those people who have really been active in your course and helping other people out. There's also a table view. Brian, what do you like to point out in the table view?
Yeah, the table view can tell you when the last time somebody connected with somebody else was. And if you're seeing somebody that's trying to connect but not connecting, or that is not connecting at all, Um, that might be a student you want to think about reaching out to or taking a look at how they're posting. You can filter the feed by their posts and comments and see if there's something about the way they're interacting with other students that you would want to give them some feedback around or something like that to help them get drawn into the conversation. I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of people focus on getting students or trying to get students to post interesting content, and really focus on the idea of how much content they're generating. But the reality is that the things that are most predictive of students continuing to participate, and liking the experience and getting, being retained in their courses is actually taking part in the conversations, interacting with other students, and actually in talking about the content, they have to actually consume more of it. So what we see is students that are commenting more are actually reading more of the content and consuming it. And if you focus them too much on just content generation without thinking about getting students interacting about that stuff, then you're missing out on one of the really important aspects of these communities.
Um, we have just a few minutes left. I wanted to just go a little bit deeper into the feed itself, filtering and sorting, because these are tools that are going to allow you to find that content that you want. As we mentioned, these topic tags and these accolades are filters, but they don't need to stand alone. We can go way deeper on that. You could click a, uh, a, a topic to filter, and then you can add perhaps a date range or perhaps a particular student that you wanted to find the post or comment from that person. And to make it even better, if you have a particular keyword or word that you'd like to use, add that to it, and you're going to get a granular search that takes you right to the post or the comment that you want to see. And these work together. All of these things are together. And I picked a bad word. There's nothing there. but and then you can easily clear the filters. Also, the feed is sorted by recent posts or comments, meaning the most engaged with posts and comments. But you have the ability for yourself, not for your students, to also find chronological view of them or the most active posts.
Yeah, and one good reason to search for active posts is that you would be able to see those posts that have gotten sort of the most action, that sort of engaged your students the most. So, if you're trying to identify some posts really quickly, that you think would be interesting to your students, that's a really good way in a lot of cases of identifying good content.
Awesome. And then you can easily clear those filters by there's an X that it will do that with. Again, you'll see that new point modal in just, when is that targeted to be? Oh,
In the next uh, week, I think, about.
so don't be shocked. It should just only provide better information for your students and for you. And, anyway, that's pretty much the end of what we had hoped to cover. Again, we're open for other questions. And if not, we hope to see you at our ongoing office hours as they go on. If you want to do this again, we have, I believe, 8 more of these sessions scheduled right now. Anything else you want to add, Brian?
Um, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think just in terms of managing these communities, what I will often recommend at a high level is to focus on those things that you think are going to make this a valuable experience for your students. That's going to make it interesting for them. That's going to tie it to the course. And if you're able to make it an interesting, valuable experience, and they get in there and they start having a good time, most of the students will choose to participate and they'll see Yellowdig as an interesting place to come to learn. And you'll be able to save yourself a lot of time, like chasing down individual students to get them to participate by kind of focusing on the group experience and making that as good as you possibly can. And what we really see is that, those communities that get that ball rolling, uh, a lot of students start participating way above what they're required to participate because they just see the value in coming here without the point system. And that's ultimately the goal. Like, the point system in Yellowdig is hopefully to get the ball rolling, get students coming back often, and to make it an interesting, thoughtful, fun place to be where they're learning a lot.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I hope you all have, Brian and I and all the Yellowdig team, hope you have a great holiday and New Year's. And we'll look forward to hopefully continuing to work with you as we go forward. Thanks again, everyone.